This video is on the first section of our investigation, which is describing the problem we're trying to solve. So before we run our experiment itself, we need to discuss the problem we're trying to solve and make a plan for how to solve it. And so this video is about the problem part. And the problem itself involves three parts: the question that we're trying to answer, the hypothesis, and the research. So the question states the thing we're testing and what we're measuring in response, as well as the participants, and asks if the thing we're testing has an effect on the response. The hypothesis says what we think is going to happen and why we think this, and the research is is where we look into what other people have investigated and used it to predict the outcome of our experiment. So first of all, we need to do a little bit on vocabulary. So this is variables. A variable is something that can be different or vary for each member of the population. And so we use variables a lot in maths, both in maths and statistics. And so there are two variables we're interested in for this topic in experiments is the treatment variable, which is the thing we're changing, and the response variable, which is with the thing we're measuring as the response to what we've changed. So the treatment variable is the cause. You can think of it as the cause, and the response variable you can think of as the effect. So in an example where you're looking at how exercise affects heart rate, your treatment variable is whether the participant does star jumps or not, because that's what you're making them do. And the response variable is what you're measuring as a response. So you make them do star jumps and you measure their heart rate, or you have them just sitting still and you measure their heart rate, and you see if there's a difference in the heart rate, whether they were doing star jumps or whether they were just sitting still. So here's an example of how you'd actually write that. So for heart rate and exercise, in that case, exercise is the treatment variable and heart rate is the response variable, because if we're looking at those two things, we would think that exercise would have an effect on heart rate. So our question statement is, I wonder if exercise has an effect on heart rate in beats per minute compared to being at rest for students in 12 Mat to Y in Mount Roskill Grammar School in 2022. So this is where we are stating exercise has an effect on heart rate. That's the main part. We say what we're measuring our heart rate in, and we say what we're comparing it to, because that's these are the two things, either being exercised or being at rest. And these are the people that we are studying, who are our participants, and I'll talk more about that in the next video. Our hypothesis might be that that we expect the participants to have a faster heart rate after exercising. So you can say something like, in my experience, my heart seems to beat faster when I exercise, so I think the participants will have a faster heart rate after exercising than while at rest. But you can base that on lots of different things. It doesn't have to be your own experience. It can be something more specific or more research than that. And so that's what our next part is about, which is the research. So you do a little Google, find out, what happens when we exercise, and then you might find a good article that has something to say about it. And so I found this one. During exercise, your body may need 3 or 4 times your normal cardiac output because your muscles need more oxygen when you exert yourself. During exercise, your heart typically beats faster so that more blood gets out to your body. So that is a quote that I found, and so I said where it's from and what it supports. So this quote supports the idea that heart rate increases with exercise, and the quote was taken from this link here. That should be heart rate, just so you know. So that's our example of a whole problem. You want your question statement, your hypothesis, and your research into why you're saying that hypothesis. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video on plan.